For me today, very quickly, I've got a very simple task. One of my mentors was a chap called Sir Douglas Haig, who sadly passed away recently, but he said to me many years ago, bear in mind, Karl, in most years, you've only got to get 2 or 3 things right. In any one year, 2 or 3 big decisions right, because that's what shapes where your businesses are going. And interestingly, if you take the board of Riverview Law when we started, one of the big decisions we had to get right was actually focusing on technology. And I spend probably about 60 to 70% of my time, with the grace of my colleagues, in focusing on technology and the impact it's going to have on where we're going. And in that context, it's about how do you make sense of it? What are we going to do with it? And the thing that I'm going to do today is actually share with you the tech journey that we've been on, just so that hopefully there's some lessons in there in terms of practice that you can actually deploy. Because actually one of the things that is actually critical on this, it's actually more about culture, or is as much about culture as it is about the technology, because you've got to land it and make it happen. And interestingly, probably that was my face when my grandmother told me that she actually went out and captured. The thing that's been a surprise to us over the last 2 to 3 years, and you've seen it here today, is what's available now. And that's the intriguing thing, because we're all talking about the things that are coming. Actually, it's what's available today and what we do with it, which is going to be the big differentiator for us all in the businesses that we're in. And actually, if I look at Riverview Law, and if I look at all the businesses that you referenced, Stephen, the 3 we've started from scratch with colleagues in this room, we've always been technology-enabled. The interesting debate is about being technology-led, but recognizing that to make that work, you've got to have culture and actually everything else playing in it. And the thing that's been surprising to us is the more time we've spent testing, building, and working with applications, the more we've been shocked as to what's available. And there are 5 things that have actually shocked us. The tools and technologies that are there now, you've seen a lot of them today. And actually, it was interesting, Mark, what you were saying. You can go and play with Watson. You can create things. And there are lots of other tools out there as well. If you look at the speed with which they can be deployed, one of the things that's fascinating now is the way in which, and we'll show you some of that in a second, the way in which today you can deploy things at a pace which we could never have ever expected previously. How many of you have worked with enterprise-wide systems and been subjected to change control and scope specification? And by the way, they may deliver what you specified, but by the time you get there, it wasn't what you actually meant, because things have evolved so much. So a lot of the stuff that's happening is about the speed of deployment. The other thing is the impact. The impact in terms of the way they can change all of the things that we do in the way we operate, particularly automated tools and analytics, which I'm going to pick up on. Business models. I'm not going to go into that in any detail given the time constraints, but you'll have seen from the comments already made the way in which business models are evolving and the way in which they're changing. And I think the key thing for us and for all of you in your businesses, you're in a legal function in a business, actually it's this. What can be used by new or existing competitors? Because that's the interesting debate. A lot of the time I spend visiting colleagues we've got in the US, and they take me to see a lot of different companies. And I'm shocked at the way in which they're approaching things. They're starting with a blank piece of paper. So they're not sitting there thinking about how do we make the existing models work. They're sitting there going, how do we substitute and replace what's already there? This thing about actually paralegals going forward, actually don't worry about the titles. A lot of the stuff that's currently being done will be done in different ways going forward. Let me give you some examples which I think will be helpful in terms of an area of expertise and surprise. I am shocked by what you can do with analytics today and the way in which they can tell stories which help people move forward. So what I'm going to quickly show is a very short video. Again, disclaimer, this is dummy data, so these are just examples. When you see on the screen red, amber, green, that's actually assume you are the organization, and red is how you've defined high risk or high complexity. Amber, green, obviously self-explanatory. So in terms of analytics, look at what's available today and what can be done.
We were very flattered when visiting General Counsel said to us, we're really impressed with your tools and technology, we're really impressed with how you get to this output to improve your service performance. But when we looked at it, it boiled down to something incredibly simple. It boiled down to the dashboards, the analytics, the visualization, those tools which help collate the data, present the data in an easy to understand way, in an actionable way, to help them improve efficiency, to help manage risk, to help achieve their business goals.
So as a General Counsel, it's really important to be able to see not only the trends of what's happening within your team, but also within the activity day to day. Here in this dashboard, we're able to see both live cases sitting with the team at the time and closed cases, and easily toggle between the two. So from this part of the dashboard, we can see all of our cases by region type. If I then take a look at the UK, you can drill down and see where our instructions have come from by business unit. From there, you can then look at the different document types that have come from that business unit, and from there, straight down to see which of our lawyers are dealing with which matters. Here we've got average case length and volumes. Your eyes naturally pulled over to the longest length of case, this time being 59 days for novation agreements, but there's only one of them. Where I really should be focusing is over here with the statements of work. You've got high volumes, up to 3,000 matters, and they're taking a medium length of time at 13 days. But if I can manage to reduce that 13 days down to 10, I'll make a dramatic difference to my resource planning. One of the other things that the analytics is fantastic to do is that it allows you to look across your contract database. So not simply looking at the trends or the live cases within your team, but actually looking at what's happening within your contracts. So here we're looking at a heat map which looks at the contract values as against the jurisdictions of the contract, but looking at them from how long are matters taking to complete. Clearly, there's something happening in this yellow block. The yellow block, when you look down into the jurisdiction level, they're all USA jurisdictions. So what that tells me is that for relatively low contract value, that's clearly taking significantly longer in the US jurisdictions to complete these matters than it is in UAE, Singapore, or anywhere else listed there. So one of the things that's really important from a team manager's perspective is being able to react to whenever things happen within your team. These dashboards allow you to look at open and closed cases so that you can react and respond to the business and to queries within your own team as quickly as possible. We can also then look at live cases, and here's where it will really help me when one of my team members goes off ill. I'm able to look at what cases they have on at the moment so that I can reallocate them as appropriate, but also look at when their SLAs are due.
All the analytics and dashboards and MI and data, all they're really about is how do you tell a story? What is the story that the information is telling me as an individual lawyer in a team, me as a team manager who's running a team, me as the head of legal or a general counsel who wants to know what's happening on a global basis. So the key with the MI and the data analytics is really simple. What is the story it's telling? Interestingly, it has to be a story which is easy to understand and one that you can action, because one of the challenges we all have is there's far too much MI and data and information out there. So having it in a very succinct, easy to interpret, easy to use form is absolutely critical. Now, Sonia is at the back of the room, and it's fantastic, Sonia. But actually, it's interesting. Your background, Sonia?
In-house.
What technology experience have you got?
Prior to this, absolutely zero.
And how long did it take you to create some of those dashboards?
To create one of those dashboards, and all of them put together maybe half a day, but one of the visualizations maybe.
And this is what's interesting about what's available now and today. When we were actually looking at what do we do with this, where do we go from here, we started with the analytics, actually. We concluded this was the best place to start. Because actually, it's remarkably powerful in getting buy-in. Because you can imagine the impact of this real time. If you're sitting there as an individual lawyer all the way through to a general counsel on a global basis, having data like this and having visualizations like this makes it very easy to get buy-in within the organization. Not only does that, it drives action. Because the thing about MI and data is great. Actually, you need to action it and do something with it. And clearly, it looks at a performance and improvement. But of course, one of the challenges you get to, and I apologize to the Arsenal fans in the room, but I know who you are and I couldn't resist it. We got the response. We sat there first of all and said, this is terrific, but you need the data. So that took us on a journey to say, right, how do you capture the data? Because, lawyers inputting data, okay, that's interesting. We were talking earlier about the accuracy and the inaccuracy of it, structured and unstructured data. So what was interesting is we started going down that route because we needed to avoid this problem. Because there's a real danger you can put these things in the too difficult to do box. But of course, there are some answers. And that's where my great hero, Peter Drucker, Jose Marino is just there for glory. Peter Drucker. What's interesting, if Peter Drucker actually had some phenomenal insights, and we were talking earlier about some of the comments, what was the really key comment he made, Susan? The absolute key comment?
I've always thought that one of the greatest comments he made was that culture eats strategy for breakfast every day.
Absolutely right. And this is the interesting thing, because actually when you come through all these technologies are here now, and you can do things with them, but you've got to get the behaviours and the culture right. So a lot of our effort has been focused on recognising this. So there's a big theme and trend in our business, which is as relevant to everybody, whatever sector you're in, about the rise of the knowledge worker. It is an irresistible trend. It's as profound as one of my colleagues put it as the move from mainframes to PCs, the impact of mobile. And interestingly, if you're looking at the rise of the knowledge worker, and we've seen it today, it's this blue bit, the race is on. And this is great news for all of us. Fantastic news for all of us. The race is on to actually provide the virtual assistants and tools that enable us to do our jobs quicker and better and more accurately. And in terms of the race is on, we've seen some of them, and there are some more here. I remember on a trip to Palo Alto, ringing my wife, forgetting that it was about whatever time in the morning it was, and waking her up because I could not believe what I'd just seen from a startup company out at Stanford. It's shocking the speed at which they are developing these things and bringing tools to market. And some of these companies, we've referenced them today, are really fascinating in terms of what they're doing. The good news for us is these tools are coming to market now and actually being able to help us to actually do the things that we need to do. And this is where it gets to the time we met Katie. One of the occasions I was in Stanford, we were talking about what we wanted to do in the contract management market. I'll explain this in a second. And an individual I was sitting across the table from, he said, the person you need to speak to is Dr. Katie Atkinson. And I said, fantastic, I'm here for the next 3 days. Where is she based? I'll go and see her. Only to find, because those of you who know have been in visitors, we're based in the Wirral. We're literally just across the water from the University of Liverpool. I had to go all the way to Stanford to find out that Katie was the leading light in this area. And what we're taking is the argumentation frameworks to attack things like this. So I want you to imagine, look at this chart. On the left-hand side, you've got renewal dates. On the bottom, it's conformity. Imagine that these are all the contracts related to a particular system family. That could be an IT infrastructure supporting a particular business or a range of businesses in your organization. It could be a customer profile, but imagine it's actually internal. And let's pick a topical one. Let's imagine this is all of the contracts relating to ATM machines in a bank. And actually, what you want to understand is where's the risks, so we want to avoid them going down so we can't get our cash out of the cash point. What you've got is actually renewal dates, and you've got conformity against the preferred terms for the organization. We create these for customers using different analytics. Red, amber, green is against risk profile. Size of the bubble, the bigger the value of the contract. And obviously this is anonymized, so where it says C27 and C7, that would have the name of the supplier. If you click on a bubble, it takes you through to actually white, red, amber, and green, and behind it there's an interconnectivity map. Now, can you imagine the amount of time it takes to create that? One of the reasons we sat down with Katie and her team at the University of Liverpool and invented a knowledge transfer project with them is because we said, hold on, can't we take what you're doing and apply it into the contract marketplace so that if I'm sitting there as a lawyer or anybody in the legal team, if I want to understand where the risk is and what I should do, I can create maps like this and I can ask it the question, in what order should I renegotiate these contracts? Because the time to actually do that is phenomenal. If you can do it quickly using technology, which we can, that gets very interesting. And these things are here now and evolving very fast. That takes us on to configuration, not coding. I haven't got time today because of where we are, but one of the things that was key for us to make sure we could get to a point where individuals with no technology skills at all other than the skills that I've got, probably you've got, which is Microsoft Office, I can use that, could go in and create global workflows end-to-end using a very simple back office process, which is as easy and as intuitive to use as any of the tools that you're using day-to-day in your work. And there's a video which we'll send out as part of the pack afterwards, which actually explains that in detail. So here are some of the key themes and lessons just to share with you. Firstly, and this is really critical, the cost and the tool availability is no longer a debate. They're there. The issue is more about this. It is about culture and behaviors and how you land it in the organization. And that's one of the key things on this. When you go into technology, it's as much about services projects and behaviors as it is about the technology itself. And actually, we would recommend to people, and it's incremental. There's a lot of debate about Big Bang or actually evolution. It's better to start off and build, and you'd be surprised, given the way the tool's operating, how quickly you can now move at pace and with agility. Obviously, key, you've got to have focus on it. I'm so lucky that I've got a board that understands the opportunities in this marketplace and has freed my time to be able to focus on these areas. We've got a team which has grown over the last 12, 18 months from a team of about 5 people to a team of about 20 people, solely focused on R&D and investment in these areas and actually bringing tools to the market and to our team so they can actually do their jobs better. You've got to have dedicated teams to make it work. If you don't within an organisation, it's not going to succeed. And one of the things we've learned is to reverse engineer things. If you start from the data backwards and you reverse engineer it from actually what is it that you as an individual are going to have on your mobile, your tablet, your desktop real time now, all the way through to whether it's the head of legal, contract management, supervision, risk, general counsel on a global basis. If you start from that backwards, you suddenly have a real chance because you're bringing things very quickly to market that actually enable people to actually act very quickly. And finally, I'm going to, in fact, we haven't got time to play the last video. So what I would say to you, I think I'd say this. We've been surprised at the pace of change, but none of us should be surprised. You can pick dates you can track it back to. A lot of people think that change in the legal market occurred when obviously we had the economic downturn in 2008, the Legal Services Act in 2007. That wasn't it. It started in 1989 when Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. Because from that, everything has moved remarkably fast. Can you remember anyone remember the first web browser? Mosaic in 1993. Look what happened in terms of the dot-com boom from 95 to 2000. Everything that's coming out now has been in development for decades. So what would we say to you as individuals and within your businesses? The direction of travel is really clear. The issue is how do we exploit the tools that are already there? How do we prepare for what's coming down the line? And actually it comes back to one thing and one thing very simply. It's actually about culture and behavior, because these are as much services as they are technology projects. And Steve and I have done that remarkably fast. 7 seconds, it was slightly more than, but I've done it remarkably fast. Thank you very much.